What's the worst movie you've ever watched in your entire life? Preface this by saying that usually if I see a bad film in a series, I'll finish the series, as back when I wrote full reviews. A bad film bumped up my total and allowed me to vent in a humorous manner. I've seen all Twilights, all 50 Shades, and almost all Transformers. 365 Days is the only series where I wanted nothing to do with the rest of the franchise. I was so grossed out by its pro-rape agenda that I immediately ignored its follow-ups. I've definitely seen films with worse acting that look but fucking ugly, but none have made me as violently ill as 365 Days. Book of Shadows. It's just a cheap sequel to Blair Witch rushed after the original was such a hit. It's basically just the most late 90s or early 2000s film ever. Flashy imagery, stupid jump scares, generic rock music, and a plot that I don't care about. It also throws a lot of the mystery of the original out in favor of cheap satanic Wiccan witchcraft shit to be scary. Also something about demonic possession or something. The opening is actually really good. It was made by Joe Berlinger as well. And it may fool you into thinking this movie is good. It really is not. Not a bad movie in terms of quality, but basically the worst movie experience in my life. A few friends and I watched the Serbian film. We read a short description of the movie saying it was a horror movie about a porn star guy, and we just thought it was a horror comedy. But then we found out what kind of movie this actually is. We all needed some time to process what we'd just seen. We all smoked a cigarette or two to calm our nerves. Even the guys that don't smoke. I couldn't stop thinking about what the hell I had seen that night for 2 weeks. I'm guessing that would be the one I was so disappointed with. I loved the original Highlander. What was not to love? Even the historically accurate French Highlander and Scottish ancient Egyptian, which could totally be the worst miscasting. Then there was Highlander 2, which took a huge dumb nationality unknown on the original film. To make matters worse, it even had Michael Ironside and Sean Connery, who by their very presence should make the movie watchable, and it was still shit. Adam Sandler movie, Reign Over Me. Adam plays a guy clearly struggling with mental health and grief, and the movie repeatedly emphasizes how bad it would be for him to see a professional or seek any help. When Adam's character eventually tries to unalive himself, the courts attempt to intervene and force him to seek mental health care. His friends and family fight him getting any care, and win. This is seen as a triumph in the movie. The end. What a terrible, terrible movie. Serenity 2018. How they got names like Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway to sign on to something like this is honestly confounding. The whole production feels like a joke trailer you'd see for a fake movie on SNL. And then the twist. Fast from mildly amusing schlock to oh my god. This was written by some producer's 8-year-old son, and his pockets were deep enough to convince this many people to come together and make it a reality. There's bad as in has no merit and is pointless to exist, and there's bad like I try to forget it as much as possible because it was practically traumatizing. There are many examples of the first type. One can't even think of an obvious winner. But the second type was a movie called Tideland. If a movie starts with a short video of the director telling you you probably won't like it, shouldn't watch, maybe you should listen. I won't elaborate further. To Blood and Honey. The novelty is the only interesting thing about that crock of shit, and the movie does nothing with it. The only other exceptional thing about that garbage is that it manages to make even other low-budget hillbilly horror films seem high quality by comparison. It looks and sounds like it was filmed on a 2013 smartphone, but at least the audio issue isn't too much of a loss because the dialogues are absolutely forgettable. Movie 43. Good lord, what a train wreck. A sad attempt at a comedy film stuffed full with famous names, most of which were basically forced into being part of it through promises or contractual obligations. Aside from Hugh Jackman, who somehow thought Ball's chin was the funniest shit ever. Every single skit is painful, unfunny, and toe-curlingly offensive. The whole thing is an exercise in bad taste and atrocious comedic timing. Not me, but a friend of mine told me he doesn't like the movie Turning Red. He says the reasoning for it is because it's about puberty. He couldn't tolerate because he thought it was so bad. The Reddit question, I don't have an answer for on either his or my behalf because it was hard to find a good answer. And this was his answer. Night Watch 2000 for film. The one and only time my wife and I went to the movie theater without picking what we wanted to see first. So this listed. Both of us like fantasy and all science fiction, so decided to give it a whirl. While the description in Wikipedia sounds cool, it's monolithic Russian treacle. That's 100 minutes of our lives we're never getting back. Super easy. Neil Breen's fateful findings. And pretty much anything else he has made. He writes, directs, stars, edits, etc. These films, they are so bad it's like getting pulled into a vortex, and you can't look away. There are lots of good commentary tracks out there that make these a little more bearable. Come watch vs own fgek. They be on board. Now, I've seen worse films, but this one lacks any redeeming features. The other ones entertained me regardless. Oversexed rucksuckers from Mars will always have a place in my heart. This one is a comedy apparently written by someone who hated children, parents, other adults, comedy, audiences and actors. Back when I reviewed films it was by good standard for cinematic turds. Jupiter Ascending is the only movie to leave me genuinely bummed after watching it. It's been ages, but I remember the entire plot just feeling so rushed. There were so many cool sci-fi concepts, but every topic was touch and go. There was no depth, no lore, and no explanations. If the plot had been told across to 3 films or a series of episodes, I feel like it could have had potential. Disaster movie. I've seen some bad movies in my time and can maybe blame a bad script, bad acting, poor editing, amateur production, etc. Most can be somewhat forgiven. The disaster movie is beyond there. Seemed like they tried and were actually talented enough with creating an absolutely horrid movie. Not even a funny bad or an incompetent bad, but a bad bad. Meet the Spartans 2008. It was a parody movie of the movie 300, riding the coattails of that movie's huge cultural impact. It was in theaters, and halfway through the movie I was shocked this was something that they would allow people to pay for in a theater. Literally pull up any YouTube creator with over 1 million views, and they make better stuff than 1989 movie things. I mean, it's really, really, really bad. So bad that one of the actresses, who primarily did porn, even described it as the lowest point of her career, and she was just playing as a news anchor. It kind of does a Room thing and loops around to being great, but it's genuinely hard to sit through. 10/10 would recommend. Cigarettes and coffee hands down. Artistic film shot in black and white of just famous people being interviewed while talking, smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee. No point, no reason, no nothing. It was the only movie that I ever walked out on one way through. It was putting me to sleep. I still want that hour of my life back. Megan is missing. The way people hyped up that movie made me thought it would be a cinematic masterpiece. Turned it on, I started to question if this was the right movie because it looked like a school project, and the script was so clearly written by a 50-year-old man who didn't have a clue about teenage girls. One of my friends participated heavily in a movie starring Morgan Freeman and John Cusack. This can't be that bad, I said to myself. I love Morgan Freeman. It's that bad. I couldn't even tell my friend I had seen it, as I'm fairly confident it is that bad based on his input into the movie. I mean, it's bad. I got high in college with some buddies and watched the movie Rubber about a killer monster truck tire. It was by far the worst movie I've ever seen, but it was simply hilarious due to the premise. Bodies would drop and the camera would flash to and pan away, watching a big tire just bounce and roll away. Ha ha ha. I think probably Pigledy, aggressively pointless and senseless, that I was somehow adversely entertained. So, maybe it wasn't that bad after all. It somehow managed to go for a full feature length without even suggesting a plot. The Life of David Gale, just an overwhelmingly bad movie based on the idea that no one, including the medical examiner whose autopsy is very thorough, knows the victim has terminal leukemia, which blows up the whole plot. I figured it out in the first 5 minutes of the movie. Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and I'm a Marvel fan. Movie was so bad I regretted spending money on it at the cinemas. The visuals were so horrible and disorienting, and out of sheer pettiness, decided to just close my eyes and daydream. If I was sleepy, I would have slept. Plan 9 from Outer Space. Bela Lugosi died before they finished filming, so they had someone else finish his scenes, but they held a cape in front of their face so you couldn't tell it wasn't Lugosi. That's where the image of a vampire came from, and I hate that fact so much. When A Stranger Calls 2006, he barely got chased. Then at the end, spoiler alert, the culprit was just some random guy, and not even anyone from earlier in the movie. I knew right away it was one of the worst movies I ever seen. I wish I could remember the name of this, if only just to go back and watch it again. To Russia, the refugee camp at a railway. There is a man who finds an old steam train and starts driving it. That's all I've got. It's awful, but I'd like to know its name. Skinnamarink. Hilarious jump scare at the end wasn't funny enough to make up for the 100 minutes of staring at blank walls and listening to incoherent mumbling through a camcorder someone left on the floor on set.